I don't know how any of these kids will ever graduate. These guys are moving from school to school to school to school. It's like, well, now you've been in school for 5 years and you don't even have a bachelor's degree, and you didn't make it to the pros. So now what?
I really appreciate you making time to do this. I saw some of your stuff and I was like, man, I'd love to have a conversation with that guy. So
Yeah.
I'd like to start off by learning exactly what your title is, explaining that, and then we'll get into all the other stuff, the meat and potatoes of things. So please tell us exactly who you are and exactly what you do, because there's a lot of people who will listen to these episodes who don't necessarily aren't in the field rather. So
Yep. So there's a bunch of different ways that I can take this, really, and it all kind of will come back to a tipping point, I suppose. I call myself a performance therapist. Okay. The reason why I call myself a performance therapist is because by nature, I got my bachelor's in athletic training. I got my master's in kinesiology with a specialization into athletic training. As I was going through my master's, I also got my CSCS and a couple other certifications. Strength and conditioning is pretty much 90% of my foundation and my philosophy within athletic training. So I also have my doctorate in health, education, and wellness, and with a massive focus in gut health and really reducing the systemic issue we have going on with obesity. So really, it's a very multifaceted approach that I have, where I'm like, I don't just only do athletic training. I don't only do strength and conditioning. I don't only do nutrition advice. But my athlete and I kind of came to the conclusion of performance therapy, because that's really what I do. We'll be on the table, we'll be doing athletic training stuff, and then we'll go straight on the floor, then we'll go into the weight room, then onto the court. And so it's very much this performance therapist approach, right? That kind of encompasses everything. So that's in my lens of what I do, the best way that I can kind of narrow it down into exactly what I do.
okay.
Now,
Understood.
within that, obviously, it's all rehab, correctives, injury prevention, if that's what we want to call it, or if that's a thing, strength and conditioning, performance and movement, education and literacy with him. And really, at the end of the day, it's just maximizing his ceiling and raising his floor.
Understood. So just you work with one athlete right now. You have a history of, you were the head athletic trainer for the UCLA Bruins men's basketball team.
Yep.
I did some research and work on you, and now you work with one individual. Why did you make the switch from the team environment to working with one individual? And I'd certainly like to hear how that client came into your day-to-day.
Yeah, so I guess it's easier to explain how he came into my day-to-day before I explain how I left UCLA into this role. 8 years ago, I used to work for the Charlotte Hornets. I was their head athletic trainer and strength coach for their G League team at the time. So I was working both with the main team and their G League team. That was 8 years ago. We drafted his brother. His name's Cody Martin. They both played out of the University of Reno, Nevada. We drafted his brother, and 2 days before the draft, Caleb tore his MCL. And as a favor to his brother, the Hornets said, hey, we'll come in, we'll sign you to what was known as a G League contract, pretty much. He came in on crutches, and they came up to me and said, hey, he's going to be your project. Get him healthy. Obviously, you spend every day, for a year and a half working with somebody, you become pretty close with them, So we developed a friendship, and we used to always joke hey man, you ever make it big, you sign a fat NBA contract, hit me up, let's do the private thing, kind of, and he would joke about it, I joke about it. Obviously life kind of went on. I left the NBA, I went the college route, got to UCLA. I loved being there. It was great platform for me. LA was just a good situation for me, but my wife and I very much were we're not buying a house in LA. Yeah, you're paying $4,000 a month in rent. Just the things like that you're kind of like, well, how sustainable is LA really?
Right.
And then my player got traded then he was at Philly, got traded to the Mavericks, and then he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm in LA. Let's go to dinner." And that call came. He was like, "Hey, what do you think about coming to work with me privately?" And it was just hell yeah. There was no looking back at that point. So really, it was kind of a combination of timing. Like I said, my wife and I were pretty much ready to leave LA. It was right after the big fires up at the Palisades where you just kind of saw like the population of LA come really close together, but you started to realize how screwed up like politics were and how much of a divide there was for like the city and state taking care of their people. It very much put a divide into like, man, like, dude, is this somewhere we actually want to be? And yeah, it was just a perfect place. And coming to Dallas has always been a place that my wife and I have always wanted to be. So it was just a perfect marriage for kind of all parties involved for sure.
That's great. That's great. So, what did you enjoy most about being in the Division I college basketball environment? It's a very competitive environment.
Dude,
It's exciting.
that's
What did you enjoy the most?
You took the words out of my mouth. I'm competitive as fuck. Like that's what I live for it. And like UCLA has the most NCAA men's basketball banners than any other school in the country. So chasing that 12th banner was everything. And I'm a small town kid. I grew up in Wyoming. Like I should never reached the level that I have. And let alone like even working at UCLA, I think about, like that drive and what it took for me to get there. I brought that to work every day. So then like I was holding myself accountable, holding my athletes accountable, everybody that was around me. It's like, I'm here to win. I'm here to get to the highest level that I possibly can be. And that's all that matters. And if you're not going to ride with me, get the fuck out of my way. That's my mentality and always has been. So just that being in that competitive environment, it's like every day you're going to war. It's like I don't care if you're banged up. Everybody's banged up. We got to play. We have a game to win. If we don't win, we're not making it to the tournament. If we don't make it to the tournament, we're all going to get fired. If we make it to the tournament, we have a deep run. We're all successful. It's like you're as good as your brothers are out there, and that's. It was just so competitively driven that like that's what I do. That's what I thrive on. So that was the big piece of it all.
The irony, or what I'm hearing is, and I'm not saying this to minimize. You're the team physical therapist, and that's your attitude. I can't even imagine or I can because I played it in college and professionally, but if that's your attitude, what is the coach like? The assistant coach like? Players like? Insane, right? Tell us more.
Insane. Mick Cronin is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'll say that. He's, like I said, he was at my wedding, and then he's also fired me 5 times on standing on the basketball court. But like, I've never seen anyone more intense in my life than him. I've never, just his ability to sit there at 9:58, he's sitting there laughing and joking, shooting the shit, and then at 10 o'clock when practice starts, blows the whistle, and it's just a different person, and it's just the most focused, intense. Every day is war. It doesn't matter if it's practice. There's no, it's the true like. Intent versus intensity, right? Like some days it might not be an intense practice, but we're going to have massive intent, like high intent with every single rep. And then there's other days, right? We're going to have a very intense practice and I demand intensity on every single rep, that's what it comes down to. I've never seen anyone like it. And it's the reason why, him and I tend to get along. He's a small town kid as well, he worked his way up the ranks from working at these no-name schools, going to a school like Cincinnati at the time, which had a shitty basketball program, they were probably going to build a statue of him for what he did to that program and change it around. And then, him taking UCLA and, he's done a wonderful job there.
Right.
He's intense, man. He's
Sure.
intense.
I'm sure. And what Tyler's saying is that people really don't understand the landscape of what it's like to start out, to be an intern, to be a GA, to be a restricted earnings
No,
coach, to be an assistant. There's no money involved. I mean, or excuse me, very little money involved. And
little.
you have to cut your teeth. You're doing it because you love it and you're passionate about it. That's it. And to
Yep.
get to that high level is something that most people will never understand. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they said, we were talking about Marine. My friend was a Marine, and he said, when you go into the recruiting offices, there's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the Marine recruits will tell you you're not good enough. The people that they're trying to sign you up. That's by design. They
Yep.
want you to have a chip on your shoulder. They want you to push and understand that it's probable you won't make it. They want
Yep.
you to think that. So it's like the same thing here. Like the people who start off on top will never be in these wonderful positions at a UCLA. You have to grind it out, cut your teeth, and have a chip on your shoulder. And that sounds like that's exactly what you had and what the head coach has. And that's what makes it such a special culture and environment that has these overachievers who welcome all work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, these basketball players, sure, they work their ass off on the basketball court, right? But they spend their whole lives, they're told, you're the best, especially like the AAU culture. You're the
Right.
best. You're the next Jordan. Why aren't you shooting the shot? Don't pass the ball. You're the greatest to ever touch a fucking rock. Shit like that. And it's like we're sitting there going like, well, wait a second, buddy. Like, we need to give you a reality check, and like, it's like you might have worked hard on the basketball court, but that doesn't mean you've worked hard at life. Like, you have no idea what real life is.
Right.
You've been sitting here, because you're good at athletics, like, you get handed shit, especially now with NIL. Like, you're getting handed a fuck ton of money. You're getting handed millions of dollars. And it's like, like you might be getting paid, but like, just because you're an 18 with $3 million in your bank account now doesn't mean you know shit,
Right.
So that's another big compartment of kind of why I was like looking at the landscape. I was like, I'm kind of ready to leave the college world a little bit. These guys they're making a shit ton of money, as they rightfully should. I have no issues with athletes getting paid or anything like that. But like you said, it's like some of these guys, they're getting paid a lot of money. They don't know what it's like to grind. They don't know what it's like to cut their teeth. And with the NIL world now, they're getting paid. And if they don't agree with the coach, or mom and dad doesn't like how the coach is talking to them, well, in 6 months, guess what? They'll just go sign with another team.
Yeah.
And they'll say, no, the coach fucked me. I wasn't playing. I wasn't doing
course.
this. Like, no, like you didn't perform.
Yeah.
Like, right. That's the end of the day. Like, if you played hard, you busted your ass on defense, you dove after every 50-50 ball, you got after deflections, not only would you get paid a hell of a lot more, but the coaches would play you, and then you would come back the next year. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah. So I have to ask this question because this is a huge part of like today's sports world. But I knew a coach in a program, I'll just tell you, Boston College, who was trying to teach one of the athletes a lesson, benched him. He quit. He was by far the best player on the team, transferred to a big Florida university, Florida State University. I don't understand how it's even possible to help help the growth of an athlete, help discipline them, help them understand the important lesson that they really need to take in. I don't even feel like it's possible. What are your thoughts?
It's not. And like, even just like the development of athletes, like, do you do 4 years in school?
I did.
So think about this. When you came in as a freshman, just like, I mean, you didn't know shit, right? You're a freshman, you're coming in. You could barely lift a weight, probably. Like, you did your high school lifting, but you came in. Think about the development you had from the time you were a freshman into a senior, from a mental maturity, physical maturity, your approach to life, going to class, talking to whoever, your mom, dad, girlfriend, boy, like whoever it is, right? Like, your approach from when you're a freshman to a senior within a program is so structured, and it's meant to be like that.
Yeah.
That's gone. That's gone. Now it's like you're going to come in here. We got you for 6 months. All right, now you're a free agent pretty much. You're gone after that. You're going to another school. Well, now it's just a restart button, right?
Yeah.
There is no culture. There is no community. There is no like mental maturity or physical maturation of like, all right, now I have, as a freshman, you're going to go through this freshman program. As a sophomore, by the time you're a senior, you're jacked and you're like, ready for the pros. There's none of that now because everything's just like, oh, I'm loaning you for 6 months. I'm loaning you for 6 months.
Yeah.
On top of the fact, think about this. I don't know how any of these kids will ever graduate because those credits don't transfer. And these guys are moving from school to school to school to school. It's like, well, now you've been in school for 5 years and you don't even have a bachelor's degree. So now you better hope that you saved all that money that you got in NIL because now you don't have a degree and you didn't make it to the pros. So now what?
I didn't even give that thought, obviously, because what we're talking about specifically today is that's not really their priority. But I was thinking about when you said 4 years, I wanted to stop you and say it was actually 5 years because I was redshirted.
Yeah.
And then I played 4 years. And entering college, I played 1AA football, small school, University of Richmond. But 1AA football, what I showed up like at 18 years old and what I left like, 4.5 years later, I mean, it's night and day.
Child versus man.
Oh my God, night and day. I mean, I was like a serial killer by the time I left. And by the way, my football acumen, like I didn't know anything in regards to football. I thought I did. I knew nothing. When I left, I was like, my IQ for football was through the roof because we had wonderful coaches and they were like just grinding us to the bone and like understand situations. But I also think about, do you have kids?
I do not.
I have a son. I have a young boy. He's 3. And I think when you constantly put them in positions to be successful, you're guaranteeing one thing, that they will never be the person that they could be. Meaning they have to figure it out. They have to go through peaks and valleys. They have to have adversity. And it's very painful for a parent to do that intentionally, but it matters. Same thing with your athletes. Yeah.
It's hard, but like they have to learn grit, right? Like grit is everything. Like, it's the reason why I like, ever read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
Of course.
Right? Who hasn't? But there's a reason why like the guys who make money, right? They started from nothing. And then their kids, they saw their parents grind through everything from nothing. So then they're successful. But then their kids never had to grind. They didn't have that grit because they always had money. So then they, for lack of better words, they were fuck ups. And then the cycle starts all over again. And that was very heavily studied, especially in Outliers. But I'm pretty sure it's Outliers. One of Gladwell's book. I'm pretty sure it was Outliers. But it makes total sense, right? But like, it's like you said, I'm sure it's really hard for a parent to watch your kid struggle, but they have to go through certain things like that. Like you said, there's peaks and valleys, and if you don't have that grit and that fight and the mentality, well, the real world's gonna come knocking one day or the other, right? Like your kid's gonna go to work, and if he doesn't have the grit to get through a day's work, manage a project, do whatever it might be, right? They'll get fired. Well, then what? Like, they can't be 35 calling home and be like, hey, like, I need help with blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, like you're in the real world. That's just what it is. And that's my job, or one of my jobs, especially when I was at UCLA, of like, I'm trying to help teach these kids that, you don't have enough mental maturity to go to class for 4 hours a day and you think you're going to make it in the real world? What happens if you don't make it to the pros? What are you going to do for a job? Like, there's just, people got to think about that, and they just, it's tough for them, man.
Right. I mean, I think that, so what does the coach do? So the head coach knows that if he's too hard and he rubs kids the wrong way, they're going to bounce, or they're going to start looking for other schools. Now, so he can't really coach the way he believes he should be coaching to put them in a position to be successful. So what does the coach do? So
Mick never changed. He coached exactly like how he was going to coach, right? He rubbed people the wrong way, but he didn't care. He didn't have, he was on a 5-year contract. Didn't matter. He wasn't going to get fired no matter what. I definitely think there are coaches who side on the that don't coach how they should or how they want to, right? Because they know, like, I got to protect these kids because I want them to come back versus, if I sit here and rip their ass up and down at halftime, they're going to leave. And it's a culture that we're a byproduct of now, right? It's the NIL NIL culture that's not a good one because, and I'm not saying like everybody's got to sit there and get reamed up and down by their coach by any means, because we all know that coaches can be amazing leaders. They can give you unreal life lessons. Coaches for a lot of people are their dads, their second dads, their parents, and can provide these unreal thoughts for people. But damn, like they got to be able to coach how they need to coach because that's how they got to that level anyway. Right. And now all of a sudden you're stripping them of that, and like that's not the way to go.
Okay, so that's super helpful. With that, Tyler, do you have a difficult time getting today's athlete, that university athlete at the time when you were there, getting in for treatments and understanding the great value that comes with what you're trying to do for them? Do you have a difficult time getting them in there for the treatments?
It was, I would say 25% no, 75% no, 25% yes, right? There's always the few that were just like, they'd be hurt, they'd come in 20 minutes before practice, try and get fixed, and then have to get on the court. And I would explain to them over and over and over. They would see the vets, the guys that have been in for 2-3 years, and that valued the training room. You would see them, in there early. You would see these young kids come in and go like, I don't need it. I'm never going to get hurt, that kind of thing. And obviously when you're 18, you're invincible, right?
Of course.
But, the 25% was either the guys that just didn't have the mental maturity to get up and want to get the work in because they didn't value it. They didn't know that they needed to. And the other 75% knew it. And they knew that I had buy-in with them, right? I try to do everything as I can to become the most relatable person. I have meetings with them, and it really all comes down to, I'm like, what do you want? Like, what is your goal, right? At the end of the day, if your goal is to become a professional athlete, all your decisions are made before you. You don't have to make a decision in your life. You know what to eat. You know when to show up. You know when to go to class. You know what you have to pass for class. Right? The decisions are made. You just have to do it.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. If you have a goal and you're that committed to that goal, that's all it comes down to. Like your decisions are made and you will get it. It's like, you just have to be willing to do it, right? And like, think about a college athlete. Like, these guys don't have to plan a damn thing. They have an academic advisor that'll put them in through all the classes. They have TAs that'll help them with all their homework. They have a strength coach who writes down every workout for them and will put them through the workout to make sure they do every single rep. They have guys like me who will sit there, manual therapy, stretch, whatever it might be, to make sure that they are in the best physical shape of their life. They have coaches to walk them through practice. All they have to do is put the ball through the rim, which any good coach goes, I don't even care if you make it, because we know that the best shooters in the world only shoot 40%, so you're going to miss over half the time. But are you going to do all the other things around it that require being a good athlete, right? So it's like all the decisions and your life is handed to you. All you have to be is like committed enough to just do it at a high level. And the guys that will do it are the ones that are successful. And the guys that aren't, it's like, all right, bon voyage. We'll see you at some D2 in a couple of years, and that's the end of your story. That's the reality of it.
No, that's absolutely the reality of it. So I haven't talked to someone this year actually who's been involved in collegiate coaching in the collegiate environment, but it's so interesting because I don't think the athletes put in those situations understand how fortunate and I would say lucky they are to be in those environments. When I'm looking at Texas Tech with a $200 million facility renovation where all the recovery, listen, some of the best luxury gyms in the world do not have these recovery modalities. And they have everything. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, the best food, the best supplements. They could literally build, and they're getting NIL, so they could build their life on this. Well, why not maximize that and like build up this foundation? So if you play pro, great. If you don't play pro, you're going to be good, right?
Yeah.
I don't think enough people take advantage of that.
At all. Yeah, exactly, man. You see these state-of-the-art buildings. I mean, they're just, I mean, I'm sure guys like you and me just drool over them. We're like, holy shit, like
Yeah.
that, I would kill for that.
I spent my whole
I'm
day
building
there.
it. Yeah, every day for my whole life.
Yeah.
I'd be happy as hell, but like they can't, they can't see past right here. They can't
Hmm.
see the vision.
Hmm.
The only thing they have in their head is the thought of like, yeah, I want to go pro, but it's like they don't realize how hard it actually is.
Hmm.
It's not just you wanting to go pro. It's you and every other person in the fucking world that wants to
For
go
sure.
pro, and the likelihood of you actually going pro is minimal,
Right.
very very minimal.
Right.
And especially if you're not on a good team. It's kind of like everything. It's like, if you're on a winning team, obviously you're going to look way better. If you're on a shitty team, and you could be the best player on a shitty team, that doesn't mean it's going to help your case at all. Like
Yeah. Yeah. So an unfair question, Tyler. Was there any athlete that you coached that you can remember, or which athlete was really like you cut from a different cloth and you were like, wow, this guy is very special. Like he was
Jaime
great.
Jaquez Jr.
Oh yeah.
Yep, he played for the Heat for forever. He just got traded to the Bucks.
Yeah.
He's like my little brother. He was one of the guys that when I got to UCLA, I clicked with him really, really well. But his attitude from the day to day, his approach on a day to day, it was just different. You
Hmm.
could tell that like he just operated on a much higher level.
Hmm.
And he had that grit. Again, like kind of comes down to it. Like his family his grandparents migrated from Mexico. His dad, was working in sales and was grinding it out, and you just saw like the grit of his family that they had. There's a reason why he was the 16th pick in the NBA, and his sister was a lottery pick in the WNBA.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
they are an amazing family. I mean, top tier family. But you could just see that the grit that his family has installed in him, from such a young age, to where it didn't matter if he was hurt, and I mean like really hurt to the point to where he shouldn't have been playing on the court. Nothing was going to hold him back,
Right.
right? And I spent many late nights until 3, 4 a.m. working on his ankles to make sure that he was able to play the next day,
Hmm.
just so that he'd go out there, dominate, and then it would just do it all over again. But it was that grit that like nothing was going to stop him from like getting out on the court, and that
Hmm.
included go to class, do all the little things, kind of like what I just talked about. Like all the decisions were made in front of him,
Hmm.
and that's the reason why he's an incredible NBA player.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if we fast forward, now you're working with an NBA player. It's
Hmm.
certainly different levels, different commitment, different type of athlete and maturity. Would you say what percentage of the NBA at players are all in all the time? Like how involved do you want to be in like claiming your own success? What percentage would you say is all in and does what you're basically doing with Caleb? Like what percentage? I'm very curious.
I think my guess is probably 30%. And the reason
Really?
why is because, like, it's not that guys aren't all in. I think that, one, for guys to want to just say hire a guy like me, usually they have to get to a second contract.
Hmm.
That first contract, your rookie contract, it, you know, initially it sounds great, right? You're probably making a couple million, but like, it's not cheap. You buy a house, you buy a car, you kind of do all these different things, let alone put someone on salary.
Hmm.
That's really tough. So by the time you get to a second contract, well, then you're probably looking at ideas of like, okay, how do I maximize myself? I'm getting older, so I know I need a little more hands-on attention.
Hmm.
I need to eat right. So maybe I'm getting a nutritionist or a chef,
Hmm.
things like that. That's usually the guys that make it to the second contract are guys that are more invested.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why I say it like that. And I think, I don't know, that this is a complete guess, but I would say like only like 30% of these guys probably make it to that second contract.
Right.
It's hard damn work, and especially now, like I'm working with Caleb. He's on his third contract, and we're trying to get to 10 years.
Okay.
He's got 2 years left. He's 8 years in, and then our goal is to sign another contract after that. whether that's a vet minimum or whatever. But like we're trying to maximize his career and do whatever we have to do for it. But he's just another guy that was like, he did everything by the team. Then, once he got his paycheck, like his big payday, he was like, I know that I need to focus on having a guy like me around that can help maximize his ability to get that next contract. And that's our whole focus. And, it's like, and that's something I take in day to day. It's like, there's days where, he's kind of like, maybe we'll just go golf. I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll go work out, then we'll go golf. Like there's just pieces like that. It's like, we got to see the bigger vision collectively. Once he brought me on the team, it's like, these are the things that we need to do. It's like there's very little days off, but it's like we'll get it in every single day, and that's all that matters. It's like we see the vision, and now we just got to go out there and execute it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So can you share what your day looks like when you're working with him?
Yeah. Today's a perfect example. So his brother initially, his twin brother that was drafted by the Hornets, he's in town right now. So he's working his way back into the NBA, and got up 5:30. We were at the gym by 6:15. We started treatments. Typically when it's just him, I only work on him, but like when his brother's in town, obviously I'm going to help him out. So it's usually 30 minutes of treatment on both. We're talking just general mobility, activation, making sure the joints are moving, tissues gliding right, just getting the juices flowing right. We'll do that for 30 minutes each. Then we'll go into the weight room, activation for 10, 15, very neuromuscular driven. You just kind of get everything wired up, right? Make sure the tissue is purely like, not just like flowing, but like we're getting juiced up now. Onto the court, go through an hour-long shooting session with a lot of movement, then straight into the weight room, 45-minute lift, probably sometimes an hour. Everything that we're doing right now, because it's off season, it's time to build muscles. It's time to protect, rebuild, everything like that. So we're doing a lot of time under tension, a lot of tempo work, with a lot of plyometrics right now, because we're trying to, get ready to start back into playing mode. So we're trying to work on that stress shortening cycle, get that pop back, and we've recovered from all the injuries. Now it's just a matter of like go into the next season healthy and make sure that we're flying on all levels. And so we'll do that for an hour. After that's done, back on the table, we'll treat any, it's very easy. Like, hey, did you feel anything come up during the workout? Yes, no. Okay, we handle it right then and there. If not, then we continuously treat old injuries to make sure that they don't recur. That's the one thing that science does show over and over. The biggest indicator for an injury is a history of that same injury. So, just kind of having a few touch points to make sure that we're handling those. And then that's really it. At the end of the day, we try to be done fairly early. It's great. Caleb's, he's a little bit older now, so he's not staying up all night like he used to be when he was, 20, going to bed at 3 a.m. Now he's, engaged and is in bed by 10 p.m. and up at 6. So that's he's kind of on the same schedule as me. So that's nice. But yeah, that's our day to day of work. We get it in, get it done, and in season it's a little bit different. Obviously, it's a lot more travel, just bouncing around to wherever he is or wherever he's going to be, and just kind of doing the same thing. Just a lot of game prep, making sure that his tendons are healthy, and just keeping his body right. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. And are you involved with the nutritional planning? Are you involved in the supplements? Are you involved in any of those? I'm sure you guys work together, or let me say, how involved are you in those things?
Very. Yeah. When he brought me on initially, I told him that I wanted to go through and hire she's a good friend of mine, but she's a gut health specialist. Her name's Maggie Watts. So we hired her initially, and we ran through an entire gut panel. That includes blood, fecal, urine. We do everything. We're testing for anything that can possibly become or that can become inflammatory in nature to him, right? So it's like we need to know exactly what it is so that we can cut those foods out, those toxins out, whatever it might be, so that he's healing as fast as possible and recovering and performing as fast as possible. That it was kind of rule number one. So once we figured those things out, exactly like what was either sensitive or inflammatory for him, this is just how mentally strong he is. He just cut that shit out like right away, cold turkey. After that, then it just became like, okay, now we know what we can eat and what we can't eat, and from there on out, then it became an easy deal, right? It's like we know if you can't eat chicken, then don't eat chicken. If you can't eat steak, don't eat steak, you know. Yeah, then we just kind of rocked out with that. And supplements, same thing. Like I don't recommend anybody take supplements unless they're testing or have tested themselves for it, right? What's good for me probably isn't good for you. What's good for you probably isn't good for me. You know, the only thing that's relatively, I would say, safe across the board is something like creatine. You know, that's been like the only supplement that's been even researched enough to have any type of, you know, backing behind it really that's good across all boards. But when it comes into specific dietary supplements, you know, there's many things that's like, yeah, like I went out and did the testing, and it's like I shouldn't be taking these like bovine supplements, these, you know, these because I don't need them, you know, stuff like that. But so I think that's just a big piece of it. So I'm very heavily. That was a long-winded answer to say I'm very heavily involved with his nutrition, his supplementation, being on top of it, and yeah, that's something I try and handle as much as I can.
I certainly appreciate that. Is there how would you string up your philosophy in general in regards to your approach and how you do things? You say, hey, I'm a table guy. I get people off the table, get them moving. What is your philosophy, if you could describe it to someone trying to get a better understanding in your approach?
To make health simple.
Okay.
That's my whole goal. I just try and make like I can spit out a lot of fancy scientific words to him or to these people, and they're like, I'm not going to know what the hell that is.
Right.
But I just want to make it simple so it's easily digestible for him, whoever else, and so it's like, you know, that's really all that it comes down to. Like I just want to make health simple, and that includes anything from gut health, strength and conditioning, performance, athletic training, rehab. Just make it simple so that it creates buy-in, because then they understand it, and then they want to do it, right? If I'm sitting here and I'm, you know, trying to recite the entire chemistry table, he's going to look at me like, what the hell is that? You know, get out of here. Right. You know, versus anything else. So make it simple, keep it very short, easily digestible. That's really all it comes down to.
Okay. Understood. And what would you say, I would say maybe you say top 3 things that an athlete, an NBA athlete, a basketball player. So let's talk to 2 different groups. So let's talk to a young aspiring high school athlete. What should he be paying attention to? The 3 top things that are so important in regards to keeping him on the court, keeping him healthy. And then we'll go to the professional athlete, 3 things. So high school athlete first, top 3 things he should be paying attention to.
Muscular strength, muscular fascial strength. I think that's the biggest thing no matter what, right? I think that when you're going through high school, the biggest thing, like nutrition's not as much of a factor, right? Like these guys can put whatever in their body and they're just gonna go out there and perform, right?
It's true.
General strength training will go a long way. And I'm not talking about like needing some like one-on-one strength and conditioning coach or anything like a general strength and conditioning approach for an athlete, for a high school athlete, will do wonders for these kids. Second, I would say general tendons, like take care of your tendons, which also again falls back into number 1, right? Because if you're doing general strength training, then you're probably addressing some type of isometrics for Achilles, patellar tendon, anything like that. And the reason why I say that, obviously we always have these, you know, ever-growing issues of Osgood-Slaughters, patellar jumpers, knees, things like that. You know, so that's kind of the second one.
Can I stop you there quickly?
Yep.
What is your thought? What are your thoughts on keeping your Achilles healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously it's a hot topic in the NBA right now. I think that there's a laundry list of items that could possibly go wrong with it. I do think that there are some like systemic inflammatory issues that are going on for people that are tearing their Achilles and whatnot. I do think that there is a lot of pent up micro trauma from playing. At the end of the day, like these guys have played every single day for numerous and numerous years. You're going to have micro trauma over and over and over to these issues, right? When it comes to truly keeping them healthy, I mean, we know that BFR and isometrics, like that's at the end of the day, like those are the two things that we know will strengthen tendons, right?
Okay.
It's got to be heavy loading. Tendons love load at the end of the day, and either you're going to sit there and you're going to lift super heavy, or you're going to trick the brain and the body through BFR, which signals give you the same exact signaling. So you can rely on those things pretty well to keep your tendons and just your general tissue pretty healthy. Now, another thing with like when you see this like giant epidemic of Achilles tears right now, what I see in the NBA is I see a lot of guys go, we'll say 3/4 speed for most of the season. And you also see players only really play hard when they get the ball in their hands, right? Like that's just kind of the general nature. Now instead of playing 82 games, now you're in game, I don't know, 97. Intensity is a little bit higher. Your drive's a little bit higher. You're going a little bit harder. Well, you haven't been going that hard all season, so your body's not prepared for that load and that intensity, right? Now I give you the ball, and you do one false step, and it might be a sub-maximal, back step, false step, but there's so much that has led up to that at that time. We're talking lack of sleep, travel, probably eating a little worse. You're just grabbing shit on the road. All these different factors. It's like it just goes back to that cumulative load or that 1%. Just over and over and over. That eventually that shit adds up, right? And it can add up in a negative world, just like it can add up in the positive lens. Then like I said, it's game 105, and you take a half effort false step, but that's enough to make it happen because that's the tipping point,
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, again, a long-winded answer, but in my head, that really makes sense of like why we see it happen with some of these guys, and obviously there's no way to go back and look like, oh, like he had microtrauma or he had this happen, but like it's all theories.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that there may be one incident, but it's a consolidation of variables that comes together and then creates that moment, and that's the result. So you gave us two things: strength, the tendon health goes back to number one. What was number three?
Mobility. Mobility is something that I see these guys lack from a very, very early age. It's the reason why you see these like high school freshmen or freshmen in college come in. You try and have them squat, and they get down. Next thing you know, they just bend over at the waist instead of being able to actually squat, right? And it's just their tissue's so wound up. It needs to be addressed like early and often. So those are the three things for sure that need to be, in my mind, like first accountable.
That's great. That's a good list. Now for professional athletes, I know that there's a lot of carryover, obviously, but they're different, a little bit more mature, different ages, different years of experience in the game. What's your top three for the NBA?
Yeah, then it gets into, I try to keep it a little more basic. Nutrition, number one, right? Like what you put into your body is what you're going to get out of it at the end of the day. So especially when you get to the later 20s, early 30s, your body's not moving like it was when it's 18, which is why I didn't bring it up in the first list, right? You're able to manipulate it early when you're young versus when you're later in life. That nutrition is everything for that. Second, sleep. Yeah. Right? We obviously know we need to focus on sleep. Mm-hmm. And then third after that is then going to get into the performance metrics of making sure that we're able to put the body armor on to then withstand the tolerance of the 82 games, right? If you can do those three things, then, like the idea of like injury prevention is absolutely idiotic. Like there's nothing that we're going to do to be when people call themselves injury prevention specialists, I'm like, you're an idiot. Like there's nothing you're going to do to prevent somebody from going out on the court and, tweaking their ankle. But a strength and conditioning or performance coach, that's the closest thing that we actually have to injury prevention. And that is, are we preparing our athletes for the demands of the game, right? Are we putting them into precarious positions to where it's not foreign for when they're on the court, right? I think that's something that is very, very overlooked. People getting in, it's like when you watch like Patrick Mahomes and work out with his guy Bobby Stroop, he puts him in these really deep positions, right, that he may or may not ever get onto a court or onto a field. But that way, if he ever does get close to it, his body's like it's normalized, so those things matter. I put a lot of value into that is, when performance is everything, and it starts in the weight room. Like it truly does. Like are you loading them? Are you loading them in multi-directional angles and precarious positions that they may or may not ever get into? But the brain and the body have to know that like when they get aggressively knee over toe or in a valgus position, it's not foreign to the body. So the body's first thought isn't tear my ACL. I've done it. I've been in this position, So that's kind of where I come at it.
Okay. So in nutrition, sleep, mobility?
Nutrition, sleep, just performance at that point. And which you could just put in strength and conditioning at that point.
Yeah. Understood. So what I'd like to do is give you a list of things on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not good at all, 10 being amazing for you. I'm going to give you a list of different things, and you're going to, where you personally rank them. And if you want to say a few words about them, so by all means, okay? So on a scale of 1 to 10, sauna.
9. Well, specifically infrared sauna.
It's your choice. Your choice.
I'm an infrared sauna guy. I always have been. I love the fact that you can go in there and literally, for lack of better words, cook yourself inside out. Now, I will say there was a study that just came out, and I don't know, I didn't look into it very much, but they said that if you're going to be in the sauna to get the true benefits of heat shock protein release, you have to be in there for like 50 to 70 minutes. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but if I was going to be in the sauna for 50 minutes, I would die. Yeah. So I don't know, again, like that was, I don't even know where I saw or heard that, but I am a big sauna guy. I try to go 5 times a week no matter what. I do think that there is a benefit, even if it's for 20 minutes. I still think you're going to release some type of heat shock protein, so I put that up at 9.
Okay, awesome. Of course, it's got to be on the list, cold plunge.
I give the same number. The reason why is the exact opposite of cold shock proteins. Like you want to get those released. Anything that's going to alternate, get you away from homeostasis, right? Like you cannot stay in the middle. We know that if you stay in the middle, your body will never change. You have to bounce from one end to the other, and those are literally the two most opposite things in the world. So like I give them 9 and 9 for sure.
Awesome. Recovery boots?
4. I think they feel good. I think that like I have them, I use them. I think they feel good. I noticed there's some like studies that go out there that say like they're some are better than most, and we got to increase the millimeters of mercury that actually like to get true change. I think it's more like, hey, look, they feel good, and if it makes you feel good, that's all that matters, right? If it makes the brain feel good, it makes the body feel good.
Yeah, placebo's real. I say if you feel better,
placebo's very real.
It works. It works. It's doing its job if you feel better, right?
Yep.
Red light therapy.
8. I like red light therapy a lot. I have a Juve panel that I travel with. I'll say this about red light. I didn't know I had this issue, but like I used to, growing up in Wyoming, struggle with like seasonal affective disorder. Like I had no idea that because we didn't get any sunlight in Wyoming for 8 months, I was like damn near depressed. Then I moved to New Mexico, and I'm like, holy shit, in California, I was like, damn, like this is what it's like. Like life's great, and it's purely just because the sun's out.
Yeah.
You know. And then I moved to Cleveland, and the sun's never out, but I had a red light panel, and I would do that every day, and I felt incredible. It was like I just never even got close to that level. So that's just a little personal side quest story, but I love a good red light panel.
Awesome. How long did you do it for? 20 minutes a day?
Yep, 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, next, oxygen chamber.
Hyperbaric? 10. I think that, like, if I had one, I would be in that damn thing every day.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only things where, like, you can, I mean, you're truly creating oxygen turnover or cellular turnover, that's recovery by itself, right? Like that's the goal, is to get these old cells to die off and new cells to proliferate and regenerate. So I give hyperbaric a 10.
Awesome. I was going to say hydration, but take it one step further. Electrolytes, like being properly hydrated, but specifically using electrolytes.
Yeah, 5. I mean, I think it's, again, that goes back to this specific supplementation of looking at, are you a salty sweater? How much do you sweat compared to, anything else? It just goes back to like what truly is needed. As a blanket category, I just say 5, because like some guys are salty sweaters and they need to juice up before they even get into practice. Some guys, they don't need anything at all.
Right. With that, in college or even now, but both, I'd really want to know, IVs, are they popular in college?
They're getting there. They're getting more and more. I was a fan of them. I use them at UCLA all the time. All the time. I think that they, even if it's the placebo effect where guys are like, hell yeah, like, I'm coming off a road trip, I feel great, whatever it might be. But then I also had a kid who was a continuous cramper. And, we do know that, like, if you get an IV, right, like, it's not going to have the same effect as if you just drinking water, right? It's a different form of hydration. If you take an IV and then you go play a game, it doesn't mean that you're not going to cramp. But if I know that, like, this person really sucks at getting fluid in his system no matter what, he's not going to sit there and drink water. He's not going to drink the liquid IVs or whatever there is for electrolytes. I'm going to give him an IV,
right.
So I like IVs.
Awesome. Creatine.
Creatine's a 9. I mean, just I'll say that I should take it every day. I don't, because for whatever reason it makes me bloated, and I don't like that feeling of that. But the research of it, and I'm not even going to talk about from like a muscular health standpoint, but from a brain health, is just every study that's coming out, brain health, mental health, it's just highly improving. And I'm waiting to see more and more studies come out, especially with people who have concussions and their ability to recover with creatine intake.
Okay.
We're going to start seeing that more and more and more, I believe.
Okay.
It's going to speed up their concussion recovery times.
I love that. Meditation.
10.
10?
It's just
10.
Yeah, 10. It's just whether it's you're sitting there by yourself, you're sitting in a sauna, you're journaling, you're doing self-reflection, the ability to, I guess, sit there and focus on one thing and really become vulnerable, or just like open up to something. One, I'll just say, like, I think most men need to do it in general. But like I'm a big believer in self-reflection and journaling, being able to write down your thoughts and really then go back and look and say, like, where do I need to improve? How do I improve? How do I change, so that if a situation occurred to where like it didn't work out advantageously for me, like that I can, if I'm ever in a situation like that, where I can be a better version of myself. And I think it helps get people now away from these, right?
Yeah.
Like the ability to just put the phone down, take a couple deep breaths, work on box breathing, whatever it might be, and just go like, damn, like, okay, like I'm okay without that instant gratification of the Instagram DM going off, or you know what I'm saying? Just like being okay with just focusing on myself.
For sure. Float. It's amazing that you said medium meditations at 10 because I'm with you. It's really powerful. Last one. Float tank bed.
So I've never actually done one.
Okay.
I've always wanted to. I would go as far to say that it probably be a 10 because you're in there by yourself. You're in there with like sensory deprivation. You have no other choice but to focus on your breath and you're sitting there, right? Like, I mean, granted, I've never done one, but I would imagine that it's going to be like a 10 because again, like it's going to force you to meditate. Yeah. Like unless there's lights and other shit going on, but you know, like you'd have to sit there and listen to the sound of your breath, you know?
That's true. That's exactly right. Okay. Last piece of the podcast here is something really important. You were a youth athlete at one point, so I certainly was a youth athlete trying to learn as much as possible. One piece of advice you would give to all youth athletes on their come up.
Don't ask, don't get. And I say that in the sense of like, don't be afraid to ask for more work, for help, for especially with this now. And I'm gonna take this in the root of like a mental health world, but like there's so much pressure that's going on with these high school athletes. Don't be afraid to ask for mental health help. Don't be afraid to ask you know, your athletic trainer, your strength coach to talk, to get shit off your chest, right? Like you know, it's okay to vocalize the things that I think forever were, you know, oh, like you need to be a tough guy, put that shit under the rug or whatever. It's like it's not like don't ask, don't get. Like it's very much like something that my mom taught me forever ago, but you know, that's just something, and it goes into anything, right? Like you know, it could come down to a job, it could come down to like asking for more playing time, it can ask for like whatever, but most people won't ever ask that question or ask a question, right? They're just like, well, this is how life's supposed to be. That's just not true at all. Like you have to ask, you have to be vulnerable enough to ask questions that will put you in a position to probably become a better person, but then just become more advantageous for what you're going to do anyway.
Absolutely. That's super helpful. Do you think that has been a problem, that athletes, because they come from this tough culture, you got to be tough, don't talk about your weaknesses, like don't share. Has that been a problem? Is that something that you really see everywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's slowly starting to change, you know, but even still, like the idea of like, you know, working with a psychologist or a mental performance coach, you know, guys still struggle with, you know, because they think that one, if I open up to this person, will it get back to the team? Will it get back to the coach? You know, there's very much that issue. But then two, it just goes back to, like you said, it's like, you know, like don't be a pussy. You know, rub some dirt on it, shit like that. And it's like, that's not the reality of it, man. Like you got a lot of stress going on, right? Like you're getting paid $1 million, guess what, to go out there and perform. And if you don't, like, you're screwed, you know? So it's improving. I like the idea of mental performance coach versus like psychologist a lot better. It's just a different lens and a different take, you know, that I think that the athletes can relate to at a higher level, you know, and be like, oh, like this makes sense, you know?
Yeah. And when they think of like psychology, they think of one thing. When they think of like performance coach, they think of something different. And maybe it's the ego, maybe they'll be more open to it, whatever it may be. But I think that just because they come from a culture where the coach is extremely hard on them, very demanding, very tough, that doesn't mean that the coach doesn't care. Because that's exactly why the coach does that, because that's his version of caring. Now, I'm not saying that's great for everyone, but I think sometimes athletes, I'm talking about myself in this moment, I had a coach that was notorious. You ever seen the movie Whiplash?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my coach that's who he was. I mean, it was like he's in the NFL now. He's a famous D-line coach in the NFL many years, but he was beyond tough. And he was trying to weed people out. If you quit, now he knows that it's not for you, but he cared a great deal. And I think sometimes as athletes, we forget that these coaches care and you can go to them, but it would be optimal to have a mental performance coach. Is
Yeah.
that common now on staff?
Yeah. Most actually every team I think is required in the NBA to have at least a psychologist or a mental performance coach. That's a requirement.
Okay. Okay. Well, this has been
And
awesome, man.
yeah.
I can't. Please finish. I want to hear.
I was gonna say I think that like most colleges, like we had 3 at UCLA, and we even made it mandatory for them to be part of our physical intake process now. You know, it's
Wow.
like you'd go through the actual physical, and then you'd have to go do an intake form for the mental health aspect. If there was any red flags, you know, it would be addressed right then and there. If not, you would still have to go sit with the team sports psychologist to at least like have an open conversation. It would probably only be like 2 to 5 minutes, you know, but at least like open the door. Hey, look, this
Yeah.
is what I do. This is, you know, I'm always here for blah, blah, blah. Everything was kept confidential. This never goes back to coach, anything like that, but it opens up the door. So I thought like once we started doing that, it was an incredible tool for these guys, whether they are 18 and they don't realize it now,
Yeah.
or, you know, by the time they're a senior and they're like, damn, like I got some shit on my chest I need to talk about.
Right.
So, I think it's a huge piece.
Yeah, that's a huge step for college sports for sure. Listen, man, I thank you for making time. I know you're extremely busy, but I appreciate the chat, appreciate the insight. This was awesome. I'm looking forward to getting it out there. And where can people find you on the platforms if they want to reach out, if they have a few questions for you?
Yeah, Instagram, that's where I'm most active. Dr. T. Lesh is, that's pretty much the only place to find me, to be honest.
Okay.
I tried to have a TikTok once and it failed miserably. So, just Instagram, Dr. T. Lesh.
It's a lot to manage, man. It's a lot to manage.
It's a whole
All right.
nother job.
That's right. Tyler, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Looking forward to getting this out once again. And keep pushing them, man. Keep pushing them,
Yeah.
making people better. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you for reaching out and having me on.